If you've been around FF14 for a while, you have 100% seen one of these charts before, either on social media, the Reddit, or being posted in your favourite game-centric Discord server to start an argument. This is Lucky Bancho, and every handful of months they do a census of sorts to track how many people are playing or subscribed to FF14 over the most recent period, as well as interaction rates for newly released pieces of content. I always find these things really interesting, and whilst a lot of people love to use these as a way to either doom and gloom about the game, or argue it should be utterly immune to criticism, I love seeing if new pieces of content have captured an audience or not, so that we get a good idea of if we're going to get more. Considering Quantum just came out recently, it's actually one I've been waiting for. Before we take a proper look, I have to give a bit of a disclaimer. This is a fan-made census, and it isn't official in any way, and because of that, the numbers won't be 100% entirely accurate. It's generally put together based on player achievement data, and because of privacy settings and some back-end weirdness, you're going to run into cases where a small percentage are not properly counted. Statistics will usually be projections at first before they're fully confirmed a little later down the road too, so the numbers might shift a tad over time. Either way, it's the best we've got, and it provides a mostly accurate picture of what's going on with the game right now. So this chart here is the big one. You can check for specific values, but we're going to be looking to the nearest 10k or so because my god, I'm not reading all those extra numbers. Right now, there are around 820,000 active players. Active players are defined as characters whose most recently updated gear set includes item level 700 or more, or where their experience points have changed since the previous survey a couple of months ago. This is a roughly 60,000 active player reduction since the last survey in August to September, where the number sat somewhere around 880k. As a reference, this is a 6-year low for active players. Slightly higher than practically any point in the pre-Shadowbringers era, but lower than anything we've seen from the 5.x and 6.x cycles. The number of returning players who were inactive over the last period, but active in this one, have also reduced, from 190k last time down to about 130,000 this time, which is also a 60k drop. To an extent, this is expected, seeing as 7.3 hasn't been a particularly strong return point for those that had already dipped, and I'm not expecting to see any change in that regard until 7.4's cycle at the earliest. But of course, it isn't a positive trend. The number of players that have retained their activity since the previous update has dropped by about 10k, from about 660k to 650k. Interestingly enough, the number of new players has actually increased since the last census was taken, going up from roughly 30,000 to 40,000, with half of those gains being players joining the North American data center rather than any other region. One thing that is really important to note about new players is that they're not really new, and there is a subset of new and free trial player that isn't counted by Lucky Bancho at all. These players that are counted as new have reached Shadowbringers, so they need to have invested a decent amount of time to be counted. 590,000 players have hit level 100 and 535k have completed the base dawntrail MSQ. There's a decently steep drop off from players that have started dawntrail to those that have progressed all the way through it, hit the level cap and reached the end, but it isn't particularly far outside of usual territory. It doesn't point to there being a drastic rise of individuals that checked out of dawntrail before giving it a fair shot, compared to those that didn't make it through previous expansions in their census at least. If you go to this spreadsheet here, which I've linked in the description as well as the original post, you can see the populations of particular servers at different points in time, as well as which servers had congested status on each major patch cycle. It's here where the source of the majority of the lost players since the last census becomes clear. Whilst not entirely, it is mostly due to large declines in active players on the North American and European data centers. There are also reports on Pilgrim's Traverse, and indirectly as a result, of engagement in Square Enix's new Quantum difficulty and of the Monster Hunter collaboration, both of which I find far more interesting, and both of these came under fire in their own unique ways. Monster Hunter Wilds drew criticism for being locked behind level 100 and the completion of Dawntrail that takes hundreds of hours to reach, which for a piece of content that has the potential to draw many prospective new players in, is questionable at best. In regards to Quantum, it's a game mode that Square Enix is putting a lot of weight on for their future. They've mentioned that this is a testbed that they want to expand out going forward. And yet, this testbed is a fight unlocked through completing a niche side mode that came out in the off-patch of the off-patch, significantly reducing the number of players that would indeed test it and provide valuable feedback. Now, these interaction rates here are based off of Japanese players in particular that have A, completed Dawntrail, and B, set their achievement data on the lodestone to public. Considering that it's by default set to private, this is a much smaller subset of the player base, totaling 18% according to the survey. Enough to draw some conclusions, but not enough to do so as a pure statement of fact, especially considering that the data is going to be naturally skewed. Players that are attuned enough to the game to put the effort in to manually make their achievement data public are more likely to be those actually doing content and engaging with a variety of stuff in FF14. Nevertheless, of these 52,000 players, 31k, that is 59%, completed the first 10 floors of Pilgrim's Traverse. 20k, just under 40%, completed floor 100, which actually reads to me as quite a success for the accessibility of the Deep Dungeon. Efforts were made this time around to make clearing more pug-friendly, and it seems those have paid dividends with active members of the community, though whether it's a piece of content that will attract newcomers is yet to be seen. 8% of these players completed Quantum, and 7% did so at the highest difficulty of Q40. These rates are fine, but what this speaks to for me personally more than anything is a bit of a failing of the difficulty slider itself. Most of the people that beat it did so at the highest difficulty, with only an exceptionally small percentage interacting with Q15 or any of the lower difficulties without pushing immediately for the highest of Q40. Quantum scaling was intended to help ease players into high-level content and to meet their new mantra of having releases being for everybody and hoping to increase both their replayability and accessibility of raiding content to keep increasing that population. Seemingly, it hasn't done that yet, instead acting as a new piece of pinnacle content for those that already enjoy Savage and Ultimate, and only a small fraction have otherwise taken part. We'll see what happens with that, I guess, as time goes on. The Monster Hunter Wilds collaboration seemingly has player participation rates roughly in line with Pilgrim's Traverse, implying that most of the people that may have joined the game to try it are, as expected, either not there yet, or in low quantities. People who were already playing the game for the most part are the ones that gave it a shot. Now, these numbers are for the most part obviously not a positive thing, but they do not come as a surprise. I'm sure many have the same anecdotal experience I have this expansion, which is that more friends than before have been taking either long-term hiatuses from the game, or quitting entirely with no intention of returning, many due to either burnout or disinterest in the formulaic structure of content releases. This is one of the two major lull points of an expansion, the other one coming after 0.5 releases, and before that next expansion hype cycle truly gets rolling. So it is an expectation that numbers are dropping, and a given that they'd likely be lower than 7.2 and even 7.3. With that said, it's fair to say the game is on a player base decline from both Shadowbringers and Endwalker, and Square Enix will be more aware of this than we are as players. Acutely aware in fact, and they'll be looking to stop the bleeding as a matter of importance. I think the number one indication of this, and something I actually see as really positive, is the way that their outward-facing interactions and communications have shifted as of late. If you're paying attention, you have probably noticed a bit of a change as well. If we take the upcoming patch 7.4, for the first time in what feels like an eternity, Raiders received something they've been begging for since time immemorial: early communication regarding release dates so that they can plan it around their lives accordingly. Consideration was shown in shifting the release date to make sure that players could enjoy it without making a decision between playing it with the cutting edge or taking a relaxing break over the holidays. More than that, Yoshida's stance in interviews as of 7.25 or so has been starkly different in tone. He has sounded reflective, sometimes apologetic, but most importantly, both open and honest about aspects of the game that could have been handled better. He has spoken about the failings of Forked Tower's release and the constraints the team dealt with in the lead up to it. And whilst release came a little late for my liking, they did deliver fixes to make it slightly more playable and to alleviate the worst of the annoyances surrounding it. He has recently spoken extensively in interviews with journalists about the team's mentality shifting, and that the game is about to undergo drastic change, and that the developers have taken things for granted and are re-evaluating everything from the ground up that they've just assumed would remain static forever until now. All of this is good because a reflective, communicative Square Enix is one that can make FF14 the very best it can be. I've enjoyed my time with FF14 even when content is releasing that doesn't tickle my fancy, though I too have taken much more time away in Dawntrail, and I'm hoping to see the tried and tested release structure shift in 8.0 in favour of something a bit more experimental. For now, I'm looking forward to Savage, Ultimate and Criterion. Those should all be a blast and will sate my raiding itch, and I really hope that the second iteration of Occult Crescent takes what's good about the first, but learns lessons and learns them quickly, producing a much more enticing end product. Beastmaster is hopefully good as well, we'll see, we know almost nothing about it. Dawntrail's still got a lot of steam left in it considering it's fairly backloaded, but the perfect storm of failing player counts and developers that really seem to care, as well as thoughtful discussions about what can be done to make FF14 feel like it isn't coasting a little bit on its tried and tested formula. All of this has me much more excited to see that next expansion reveal and get an idea of what shape all of this truly will actually take. Like I said earlier, I guess all we can do is wait and see what happens. Please do consider supporting me on Patreon or becoming a YouTube member like all of these fine folk that support the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.